Well, hey folks, how you doing? Welcome back to another edition of things I talk about. In today's video, I'll be covering from here in northern Israel a very important topic of Israel versus factards. Factards? What are factards, Yasha? Well, factards are factual retards. People who don't know facts. People who can't seem to internalize facts no matter how many times they're presented to them. People who don't seem to understand that facts are what they are, and that facts are important. It's important to remember them. And it's important to not get stuck on fictitious beliefs that are just simply inaccurate. Like, that's actually important. Why do I say that's important? Well, because there are too many people making too many arguments in the world, especially when it comes to the topic of Israel and the Arab-Israeli conflict and all that stuff, where people are triggered by and stand on emotion. So very often you'll have people in the factard camp saying, Israel's committing genocide in Gaza. Okay, if Israel is committing genocide in Gaza, it is one of the worst executions, no pun intended, of a genocide that there's ever been. Not only because of how long it's taken and given how short of a period of time Israel could do it in, also because of the fact that if they have an intent to do so, it's clearly not well documented because they don't have an intent to do so. And if you're going to tell me, oh, Ben Gvir or Smotrich said this or that in public, insinuating ethnic cleansing, they may insinuate whatever they want. They may even sit in the cabinet. They are not the actual government. They are part of it. They are not actually the government. In the way that democracy in Israel works, they're not the leaders. So what they say is neither here nor there. What they are ministers who have an opinion. And yes, one of them is a finance minister. The other one is a diaspora affair, whatever. Relatively non-important minister, but still a minister. And the only reason that they're in government is to make a coalition stand. And everyone knows that they could easily be booted from government, and may very well be. Right? They always have their little grandstanding, bold opinions that they state. And they do it because they know it gets attention. It's the only way they can get attention, because they're relatively minor people. To me personally, I would I don't want these people in government. They're convicted of terrorism. They should never be in government, like, at all, ever. Of course not. But the law allows for it, and that's crazy. And yeah, that law should change, but at the moment they still have the right to serve in government, and so they do, because they've been elected via the system, which is you elect a party, and then the party decides who gets to sit in which seats. Which, again, to me, that's not a real democracy, but that's how it operates. It's a kind of democracy. You can argue that, sure, but to me, it's not a very it's not a very good democracy. It's a democracy that's rife with problems, not just political and not just corruption, but all kinds of issues. Anyway, so the point is, you tell me, oh, well, Smodrich and Ben Gvir, they want to commit genocide, they want to do ethnic cleansing. Okay, again, they don't make the actual statements that are actually representative of what the government policy is. They may make outlandish statements about what they want the policy to be, but they are not the head of the government. They're not the prime minister, not even close. Okay, yeah, they may be in government, but they're not the head of the prime. They're not the head of the government. Right? They're not even the deputy head of the government. Just because he's because one of them is the finance minister, does not mean that he's the next in line for the government. That's not how that works in Israel. Okay. There's a prime minister. When there is no prime minister, there are elections for a prime minister. Meanwhile, there's an interim prime minister. And when there's an interim prime minister, the interim prime minister is always, when necessary, a moderate, relatively, relatively, not somebody who speaks with extremism. Why? Because the moderate is going to get more support in the short term, in the immediate term, if there's a need for a snap election because something, God forbid, happens to a prime minister, right? Or, as was the case with Rabin, there was a very clear line of succession, so the interim prime minister was immediately filled. There was no question about who it would be. And that meant that there was no moment in which Israel didn't have a clear leading line of succession. Right? It's not a thing that happened because Israel has very clear lines of succession. There is a chain of command. It is a democracy. You may not like the democracy that it is, but it is a democracy. And you may have issues with how the democracy is run. For example, I have a lot of issues with the way democracy is run. I have issues with how people are elected. I have issues with how people stay in power, etc., etc. But it is a democracy. Okay. Now, why am I bringing that up when I discuss libtards? Well, because libtards seem to forget this fact, and they assume things about Israel. Israel has evil people making decisions all the time. No, Israel does not have evil people making decisions all the time. I mean, I guess you can call anyone evil. So maybe in your opinion, sure, but in reality, in the reality that we actually live in the world, Israel is run like a very normal country, actually. And here I want to dispel a stereotype, which is kind of maddening. Because look, yes, in Israel, a lot of amazing technology and science and discoveries are made. It's true. There are a lot of really smart people here. But there are also a lot of idiots here, okay? Don't think that just because it's a country full of Jews that we only have geniuses here and we're all working on evil plans to dominate the world. There's plenty of idiots here, okay? We have inefficiencies in our government. We have inefficiencies in our military. We have inefficiencies in the private sector. We have inefficiencies in the public sector. We have inefficiencies everywhere, okay? And by inefficiencies, I don't mean inefficiencies that are kind of good inefficiencies. I mean, we have extremely inefficient, unproductive mechanisms and people doing things in this country on a regular basis that are costing this country quite a lot in terms of not just money, but time, resources, effort, you name it. Okay, this is not some paradise where everything works perfectly and the evil Jews are plotting to take over the world altogether and It's just a country. And I know that's something that factards have a hard time coping with. We're just a country, like most other countries. Here's another fun fact. Factards will often say, oh, Israel is an ethno-supremacist state. Really? Do you know how many Muslim countries there are? Like 52, right? They're an ethno-supremacist state. Do you know how many Arab countries there are? Like 22 or something, right? Yeah, they're all ethno-supremacist states. They don't have equal rights. Okay, yeah, you can point me to Qatar. They don't have equal rights there. You're gonna point me to Bahrain. Yeah, they have on paper something that appears to be assimilating or a simulation of equal rights, but in reality, it's not full equal rights. Right? You can't. The head of Bahrain cannot be a non-Muslim. Right? It's a dictatorship. Right? There's like a king there or whatever his title is. Right? His family rules, not people. The people don't rule. Even if they have a Congress, even if they vote for parliament or whatever, right? There's still a head of state who is unelected and who wields ultimate power and who can honestly do anything he wants. And you can say, well, that's good for the country. That's the way they like. You can say all that you want. It's still an ethno-supremacist state. Do you know how many Christian ethno-supremacist states there are? Google it. You might be surprised. The answer is there's a ton of them. A lot. Many, many, many. Right? So to stand there and grandstand like, oh, the Jews have an ethno-supremacist state, which is first of all not true because we actually grant everyone here actual equal rights. But even if it was an ethno-supremacist state, I'm sorry, but why is that a problem if literally like 90% of the countries on this planet are ethno-supremacist states? Like they actually are, right? Meaning if you belong to an ethnicity that belongs to that country, that is the majority of the ethnicity in that country, you have more rights than other people. Like, you understand that? For example, if you're Japanese, right? If you're born in Japan, you're Japanese. If you're ethnically Japanese, in Japan, you have more rights than anybody else in Japan. If I, as a tourist, go to Japan and I even decide to live there and work there and get a job there and stay there for many years, I can never become Japanese. There isn't some process by which I can become Japanese. And I will never have the same rights as Japanese people in Japan, right? Like, I hope you realize that. I hope you know that. Because that is a fact. And then if you go to China, that's an ethno-supremacist state. If you're not part of the main ethnicity in China, guess what? You don't have equal rights. Now, you can say, well, that's not true. All Chinese people have the same rights as each other. Again, if you go there and you're not Chinese, and you live and work there for many, many years, you can't become Chinese. There is no process by which you can suddenly be Chinese. You can live there, you can work there, you can pay taxes there, you can be subjected to the whims and wishes of their very not democratic government, but you can never be actually fully Chinese. And even if they were to allow you to somehow become Chinese and declare yourself as a Chinese person, even if you're not actually, like ethnically, but if they allowed you to do it, you will never actually have equal rights there. And if you think you do, you're a factard. If you think they wouldn't treat you differently if you come from the West, or if you come from Africa, or if you come from some other place around the world, South America, or Europe, or wherever, you are a factard. And by the way, this isn't just true of China and Japan. If you go to, Albania, okay, do you think you're going to be treated with absolute equality in Albania? The answer is no, you're not, okay? If you're not actually Albanian, you don't have the same equal rights as Albanians. And you can't just become Albanian. Okay? Like you can become Israeli or you can become American. These things are not done in most countries. Ethnicities and nationalities are not able to be acquired so easily. Yes, there are many countries where you can, but not most countries. You can acquire nationality in most countries. You can't acquire ethnicity because you're kind of born with that. But you can't acquire equal rights in most countries, even if you can acquire nationality in some of them. There's no guarantee of equal rights in most countries, which is something that sets apart America and Israel and some other countries from the rest of the world. Right? In France, you can have equal rights. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. You can. You can have equal rights in France, and you can have equal rights, in Israel and in America. And you can have effectively equal rights in England. But again, England is, despite all the pomp and circumstance and all the showboating of a democracy, which it is a parliamentary democracy, it is also a monarchy. There is a monarch. At the moment, it's a king, King Charles. And, the Tudor family has been the monarch for a long time now in England. And that means that, yes, even though technically speaking it's a democracy and the king is kind of a figurehead who has like this insane amount of revenue, as the monarch, they have this crazy amount of money that they get from things that they earn, from properties that they own, etc., 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 rights that they have to license things, etc. So yes, they make quite a bit of money being the monarchs of England. But does that mean that they have like ultimate power over England and English subjects? Well, technically, no, not really. Right? There are laws that protect people that the king cannot actually violate, but the king is the king and can do certain things that other people cannot do. So to pretend like the king in England is equal to all is just not true. The king is not equal to all. The king is above the law in some ways. A lot of that has to do with pride, etc. But Factards will say, "Oh, Israel doesn't give equal rights to everyone." Well, if Israel didn't give equal rights to everyone, then explain why there are people who literally call themselves anti-Zionists who sit in the Knesset. Like right now, this very day, right? There are literally, quote unquote, anti-Zionists in the Knesset right now, whose main purpose, main goal, main efforts are to undo the very country that they legislate in. Okay. You want to tell me that's not equal rights? You want to tell me that's some kind of prejudice against them? Go ahead, try. Convince me that when we give the rights, not just to dissent, but we literally give people the right to advocate for the dissolution of the very country that they legislate in, well, good luck trying to convince me that. You're probably not going to achieve your goal. Right? We have, I'm not going to say too much freedom, because I don't think that there's too much freedom in Israel, but I think we allow our legislators to do things that practically no other country would ever allow them to do. And the reason we do it is because we believe firmly in the marketplace of ideas. We believe that if you are having a thought, as messed up as it may be, it is better for you to be able to air that thought and let the marketplace, and it's better for everyone for you to air that thought and let the marketplace determine the validity of your thought, whether it's worth anything or not. And generally, you'll find that the craziest ideas that are actually bad ideas are the ones that don't get a huge amount of support. Now, at least in a reasonable society that's free to think and act for itself. Now, does that mean that every single decision that the marketplace makes is a good idea? No, of course not. There are plenty of bad ideas that the marketplace makes. Plenty, plenty, plenty. No shortage of that. But are there also good ideas that the marketplace makes? Yes, absolutely. There are good ideas that the marketplace makes. Absolutely. And why does it matter? Well, it matters because as we suss out the ideas that go through the marketplace, we're able to develop a better country over time. Right? The more ideas we have, the more we have a probability of achieving successes with ideas that run through the marketplace. Right? If you only have one big idea, or a small idea, or idea in general, if you only have one idea, it's not as likely to be as successful as if you have tons and tons of ideas, many of which will not be so great, some of which will be okay, a huge number of which may be actually quite bad, but then some of them will be excellent because of the law of numbers and statistics. So yes, if you happen to hit a hole in one, fantastic, wonderful, run with it. But that doesn't mean that as a nation, you should be stuck on a single idea. Nations should be able to advance. And nations that are incapable of advancing are usually the ones, like when I say incapable, I mean nations that show a lack of great advancement and achievement are usually the ones that lack a marketplace of ideas that flows and is constantly full of ideas that are flowing through the marketplace. A nation that typically advances successfully is a nation where there is a healthy flow of ideas and there is a healthy marketplace of ideas where people can bring ideas forward and they can be evaluated by other people and they can be judged by other people and they can be possibly even voted on by other people. That's how we know that the marketplace of ideas concept works, as we see it in the numbers. So that's another thing that people who are the factards don't seem to comprehend very well. They rely, like I said at the beginning of this video, they rely on feelings. They are triggered by emotions and they rely on their emotions to make their arguments. And you'll notice if you ever argue about these topics with them, they very much will stick with their emotions no matter how asinine they are. And they will get upset emotionally and argue from a place of emotion, like, screaming and hurling insults, etc., from a place of emotion, and not from stone cold facts. And they'll usually end up cursing somebody out and leaving because they're very angry. Even if they've never lived in a place that they're angry about, even if they have no experience personally, they've just built this fantasy up in their head of what they imagine it to be based on what they've read or learned or been instructed or told, based on what they've seen on TV or internet or film, right, or heard about. It's delusion. People are delusional about reality, and they build up these little fake realities for themselves. Hello, hello, I see you people in here. People build up these fake delusions about what the reality is, and they stick to them. So that's kind of the long and short of what Israel has to deal with when we deal with factards and people who advocate for Israel, like me or any of the other YouTubers out there, or people in general out there who are, great advocates for Israel. Right? There's I am. There's the Traveling Chat. There's Yosef Haddad. There's Mansour. There's all kinds of great people out there, right? There's, you name it, Shachar, right? Sahar. There's no shortage of great. Rebecca does also a good job. So there's a lot of active people out there advocating for Israel with YouTube videos, etc. Mine are the least well known, probably, not probably, 100%. Even though I've been at this longer than most of the YouTube generation have been doing this, right? Been advocating for Israel for many decades. My reach is far more direct with people than on YouTube, but that's okay. Um, and we all have to deal with this army of factards. Like they're hordes. They're not even like an army. They're literally like hordes of factards that are doing factardation to the nth degree. Right? They are doing things that are not anyway. I'm going to save that for now for another video. I've given you the long and short of Israel versus factards. Hope you all have a wonderful day. And I bid you all peace. Oh, if you like this, then of course follow and subscribe and all that stuff. Leave a comment. Appreciate it. Cheers.